Hello, everybody. I am Drew Duncan. Do not forget that Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram is all at Drew Duncan Radio. Additionally, you can find me on YouTube and Patreon. Simply look for Drew Duncan Radio. Additionally, you can listen to me wherever you're listening to podcasts. Simply tell your device to play Drew Duncan on Spreaker, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Deezer, CastBox, wherever you're listening to podcasts. I am there. Also, for the record, to this day, that's still maybe my favorite guitar riff of all time, man. That Nirvana, whew, I've done a whole lot out there that tops that. All right, let's get into this. I heard an absolutely ridiculous question the other day, right? I flip on ESPN literally randomly, all right? I'm just changing channels, and I stop on ESPN. I'm like, what are these guys talking about? And I see, can Pete Carroll coach a $100 million quarterback? And I thought, what kind of insane question is that to begin with? I almost do not even care what was said, because I'm sitting there watching this thing and I'm going, okay, you've got Pete Carroll, who brought home a Super Bowl, went to another Super Bowl in a year that a lot of people were saying that Seattle Seahawks football team was overrated. They weren't overrated. They were just overplayed and overworked. And they still ended up with a 12-4 record, if I remember correctly. And they were one play away from beating the New England Patriots. And my thing about this is, I'm thinking to myself, how long has Pete Carroll been coaching Russell Wilson now? He was coaching Russell Wilson when Russell Wilson was worth far more than what they were giving him. Wasn't Wilson making somewhere in the neighborhood of like $800,000 when they won their first Super Bowl? Right? Philip Whitehurst was the original starter on that football team, wasn't he? And wasn't he making more money than R-Dub? Come on now. I just, some of these things, and please, nobody pretend to know for one moment that you think you understand what it's like to coach a $100 million quarterback. Don't get into my comment section and start telling me about, well, there's this and there's that. I already see everything that Seattle fan sees. Me and Seattle fan have had numerous conversations about them having to come from behind all the time, how they blow leads, how it seems like sometimes the only game plan is to just run the football for 3 quarters and then let Russell Wilson win it in the 4th. But sometimes that is a game plan. Whether we think that is or not, it is a game plan. And a lot of times as a coach, you want to stick to it. Do I believe in making adjustments? Do I believe in sometimes throwing in the towel and just doing something completely different during the course of a game? Absolutely. And Pete Carroll's one of the best, honestly, at second-half adjustments. If he wasn't, the Seahawks wouldn't be coming from behind the way that they do. Now, I will say this. I have stated, and I stand by the statement of eventually it catches up to you, bites you in the ass, and that was the case in point, obviously, against the Green Bay Packers. It just ran out of steam. And by the way, that was a first down. It was a first down. Folks, the yellow line is not definitive. It's an estimation. Okay? Regardless, it's ridiculous to question whether or not Pete Carroll understands how to coach a guy that he's been coaching, that he's won Super Bowls with, that he's won big games with. It just, folks, I'm not the biggest Pete Carroll fan in the world. I didn't like the way he ducked out on USC. Those problems with cheating have continued over to the NFL, right? How many times has he been busted for having practices that he wasn't allowed to have? I mean, they're to a point now where they're talking about taking away draft picks away from the Seahawks for doing this over and over again. Okay, I'm not the biggest Pete Carroll fan in the universe, but facts are facts. They win football games. Pete Carroll is an excitable coach. Most of the players respond well to it. And I think that he's done a lot more with a lot less, especially him and Russell together, I don't know if you can equate it to Tom Brady and Bill Belichick. Obviously not nearly as successful in terms of how many times they've got to a Super Bowl. But you can say that coach-quarterback connection seems to work really well. And believe me when I tell you that Russell Wilson is a hot commodity. As a Broncos fan, I would have given damn near anything to have that guy as my quarterback. And instead, he re-signs with the Seattle Seahawks. The point of that is he could have gone anywhere he wanted to. If he didn't like the coach, if he didn't like the organization, if he didn't like the city, if he didn't like the players around him, if he didn't like where things were going, then believe me when I tell you, Russell Wilson could have gone damn near anywhere and got a huge payday. There is no shortage of teams in the NFL who would give whatever it takes to have a quarterback like a Russell Wilson. You understand what I'm talking about here? And he knows that. Don't tell me that he is devoid, of what he's worth, what his value is to a franchise, the NFL alone. You could almost put Russell Wilson as one of those guys is he the face of the NFL? Is it him? Is it Aaron Rodgers? Is it Patrick Mahomes? Is it Lamar Jackson? You could legitimately have that debate. And a lot of people would tell you that Russell could easily be the face of the NFL. Easily. Come on, Baby Yoda. They did that whole thing for the Seahawks for him, right? Didn't they change that on their Twitter to Baby Yoda with the number 3 holding the football? Come on. They did that for Russell. So, don't tell me that if things were like that, if Pete Carroll was this horrendous ball coach, if there was nothing good to him, if there was no connection between him and Russell, don't tell me that he wouldn't have packed up and left Seattle just as quick as he could. That is a nonsensical question. And for the fact that even came up absolutely blows my mind. And it makes me wonder if we're that time of year, I guess, we're starting to already get desperate for topics, I suppose. Good grief. Won't you bring in a real topic like, hey, what do you think strategy-wise they could have done different during the course of that football game? Do you think maybe the injuries that they had at running back were just simply insurmountable to overcome? Or, hey, how about the injuries overall as a football team? How about the idea that maybe Pete Carroll sometimes sticks to the game plan a little too much? Why don't we talk about schemes? Why don't we talk about 3-1-7 defenses and 4-1-6 defenses and 3-4 defense and inside gaps? Oh, I know why. Because you don't know? Got it. So you come up with some little gimmick question. Hey, here's a question that'll blow everybody's mind. Is Pete Carroll capable of coaching a guy that's as rich as Russell Wilson? No, he's never coached ego maniacs. He's never dealt with people who have millions of dollars before. He has no idea how to deal with that. No clue whatsoever. Get serious, people. Guys, I am Drew Duncan. Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram is all at Drew Duncan Radio. Additionally, you can find me on YouTube and Patreon. Simply look for Drew Duncan Radio. You can also find me wherever you are listening to podcasts. Simply tell your device to play Drew Duncan on Spreaker, Castbox, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio. I am wherever you are listening to podcasts. And as always, don't you dare touch that dial.